Right. Good afternoon, coaches. So thanks for tuning in. And today, CoachSG has invited a special guest, and his name is Bernard Leader. So maybe some of you might have met him during our CoachSG conference last year. He was one of our presenters during the breakout sessions. And so he's also an NROC coach, like all of you guys. And we've invited him to share some of his insights on this topic on champions mindset, how to boost your athletes' motivation. So just a quick introduction about Bernard before I hand it over to him to give a more detailed introduction about himself. He actually typically works with leaders in business, sports, and education. And based on his backgrounds in sports and businesses, he also helps them to perform better through sports principles. So I'm quite sure you will be able to learn quite a lot from him through this 1 hour. Okay, so sit back, enjoy, and do participate actively in the session, because if you participate and stay engaged, you should be able to gain quite a lot from it. Yeah, so the chat would be busy, so keep the comments coming in. And okay, Bernard, over to you.
Eliza, thank you so much for the kind introduction. It's a pleasure to be with all of you this afternoon, and I'm really looking forward to the session. Eliza mentioned it. I had the opportunity to participate in the last CoachSG Summit as one of the speakers, and I really enjoyed the interactive session. Even though it's not going to be in person today, I really hope that we can transfer a couple of the interactive parts over into this virtual session as well. So don't be surprised if every once in a while I'll encourage you to use the chat room, because otherwise it's just me talking and it's just very boring. All right. So a couple of you may have joined because you liked the description. Some others said, well, you know, I'd like to get something out of it. I'd like to tell you a little bit more about what is it that you can expect from the session today. All right. So as we're all, you know, dealing with sports topics on a very regular basis, we know that every athlete does a little warm up. So the same is true for us. We'll do a little warm up before we get started. Give you a couple of introductory comments as well. And then afterwards, I'll move you into common challenges. What are, you know, typical challenges that athletes face based on the insights that I've gained over the last couple of months from my network, as well as from talking to people who are more on the corporate side, who are corporate athletes. Afterwards, because we don't want to stay in this kind of a problem mindset, we'd like to go to a solution. I'll give you 3 keys to motivation of your athletes, work better with them and help them to actually see things in a slightly more positive way, even though the national school games have been canceled recently. All right. The last part is Q&A. Okay, so Eliza said, well, we have an hour. Don't worry, I'm not going to talk for the entire hour. You will always have the chance to ask questions, and we'll hopefully have the chance to answer as many questions as possible. All right. A couple of people asked me, well, you know, is that session for me? If I attend that, you know, who's it actually for? This session here is for national coaches. So if you're a national coach, then, or you want to be one, then that session is definitely for you. If you are a school or youth coach, that session is definitely for you, because we will not only focus on elite level sports, we will also focus on what is it that growing athletes, developing athletes actually going through, and how we can support them. The last aspect is for coaches who just want to grow, who say, well, you know, I don't fall into the other categories, but I just want to enrich my skills. I want to improve a little bit. So that session would be for you as well. All right. Some people ask me, well, you know, how can I get the most out of this session? All right. So you're giving me one of your most precious resources, which is time. How can I actually make the most of those 45 minutes to an hour so that I really benefit the most? There are 3 things that you guys can do. All right. Point number 1, just be there. All right. It is very easy to get distracted. There's all sorts of other topics, but just try to inner focus. As you can tell, I talk a little faster, and typically on webinars, I talk even a little more fast. All right. So I try to keep the speed up so that you guys actually stay in the moment and you get the most out of that session today. Second point, participate. I'll ask you questions. All right. So just make sure that you type into the chat and that we keep that session interactive. Last part, take notes. Okay, so if you don't have a pen, paper, or your phone next to you, just make sure you have something to write so you can actually take a couple of the points down, because otherwise they may be lost and forgotten. Okay, quickly tell me, why did you guys join today? Quickly type it in the chat. Just type a quick message into the chat. Why did you guys join today? What is it that prompted you? Why are you guys here today? All right, we have more than 100 people, so I expect a couple of messages. To learn, to own knowledge. All right, to be a leader. Very good. See the word mindset, important. All right, views, new ideas, enrich yourself. Okay, so a lot of people want to learn, build strong athletes. Excellent. So it's about you, but also about how you can pass that knowledge on. Muhammad said to be a good coach, very important. Can control myself, very good, Serena. I want to dig into more knowledge. Perfect. All of those points we'll hopefully be able to cover today. All right. And even for Christopher, if you just would like to learn a little bit more, that session will be for you. All right. With that, I'm just going to give you a quick introduction, because most of you may not know me, and that is perfectly okay. So I'm the founder of a company called Athleaders. And as Eliza mentioned it, I typically work with people in business, in sports, and in education to help them understand and perform better through sports principles. My background, I have a corporate background. So I was for 10 years in multinational companies, in the chemical industry, in aviation, and in retail. But at the same time, I have a sports background. I used to play professional football in Germany, not at a Bundesliga level. I know there's a lot of people that suddenly started watching Bundesliga now because that's the only league that is internationally available to watch. I never played at that level, but I earned money with it. I switched over to triathlon a couple of years ago, did a few triathlons also here in Singapore. And I'm a coach with Adidas Runners. So if you're part of Adidas Runners, you may know me as well. And a couple of the companies or institutions that I've worked with, that I have served, include Google, UOB, and Coca-Cola. With that, I don't want to bore you with more details about myself, because you guys indicated it. You came here to learn and you wanted to be better coaches. So before we get into that, I would like to do a quick warm-up with you. So just make sure you have a little bit of space to step back. Just get out of your chairs. Yes, you're invited to get out of your chairs. Very good. You're allowed to stand during a presentation. You don't have to sit. Isn't that amazing? And as you guys know, there's a certain, logic. You have an interval timer. So we'll just do a 2.5-minute warm-up, a couple of exercises. If you want to keep the camera switched on, it will be a lot more fun for the rest. If not, that's perfectly fine as well. All right. Don't worry, it's going to be basic exercises. So the first thing that we'll do is neck circles. Neck circles, and we'll do neck circles in the opposite direction. Perfect. So the second one that we'll do is we'll do arm circles. So we'll just rotate the arms. Stretch out your arms and rotate them, and we'll change direction, opposite direction. Very good. The next one we will do is shoulder circles. All right, so you just place the palm on your shoulders and you rotate them forward. Excellent. The next one we'll do is we'll rotate them backwards. For the next one, all the dancers among you have an advantage. We will do hip circles, all right? So we'll rotate the hips. All the dancers have a big advantage. I see some beautiful hip circles there, and the opposite direction. Well done. I told you it would be good to switch on the camera. You would get something out of it, huh? Perfect. And we'll just lift the knees. Nothing strenuous. We'll just lift the knees. Excellent. And we'll bring our heels up. We'll bring the heels up once again. Nothing strenuous. Basic exercise. All right. And the last one we will do is knee circle. So just bring the knees together and I will just circle the knees. All right. Last change for the last 10 seconds. I see smiling faces. Very good. Excellent. Have a seat again. And we'll come back to the topics. Quick check-in for you guys. How do you feel? Just drop a quick message into the chat. How do you feel? Okay. Bob, thank you very much. Very visual feedback. That also works.
Good, good.
Good.
I feel
great.
fresh.
Thank you, Jenny.
I feel my muscle is relaxing now.
All right. All right. Excellent. So you got something out, even though it had nothing to do with motivation. So yeah, I'm happy to hear that. Excellent. There's a lot of you who feel good. However, you guys did not join today because you wanted to get a small warm-up in. You guys came here to benefit from it. All right. So with that, I'm going to run you through a couple of the feedbacks that I've received from either coaches or athletes themselves about how they're feeling right now. A lot of them are worried and stressed, okay? So on the emotional side, they find it very difficult to cope with the current situation. They also know that, their main livelihood is impacted. They will have a reduction in prize money, especially if they're more in a niche sport, if they don't have the sponsor. So that is something that definitely worries them. Second thing is short-term orientation. A lot of us started this new decade, 2020, with a lot of targets. We wanted to achieve a lot. However, from a 10-year plan, we suddenly came down to something that is very short-term oriented, okay? So the topic was more, what are the latest case numbers and when will things open up again? And we keep checking that on an ongoing basis. So it is not the kind of broader perspective that would help us in those times. Physically drained. I know a lot of people that tell me I sit down in the morning in front of my screen and I find it very, very difficult to get up, all right? Because it's just very addictive. It just feels very easy. And that is something that, because I've been sitting for quite an amount of time, I actually feel more tired than if I were to do a workout or anything else, okay? And the last part is distracted. Typically, you share your apartment with other members. So that means that there's a lot of other people in the household. There is children, there's pets, etc. A lot of responsibilities and commitments that you have to take care of. So those are typically 4 factors that people have told me, all right? However, if we left it with that, you tell me, well, why are we talking about this? Why did I join the session? That's something that I already knew. One of the factors, one of the reasons I think many people joined was because they're talking about the topic of motivation and how can I motivate athletes better? Quick question, does anybody know where the word motivation is coming from? Any idea? Where does motivation come from?
Your mindset.
Mindset, all right, is a factor, yeah. Motive and action, all right. Yeah. Thank you. Any other idea? Where could it? Okay, it involves passion, involves target, experience. Yeah, all valid points, but where does the root, what's the root of the word motivation? Where does it come from? Who came up with the word motivation?
To improve yourself.
All right.
To get better and better, to join the competition, and you want to motivate yourself and go for it.
All right, Jenny, yeah, thanks for that. All right, yeah. You guys are very close. Motivation is something that came from the Latin root of in moverse. So in moverse, it sounds very scientifically, but it will make sense when I explain it to you. The root of the word motivation comes from in moverse. And it means I put myself in movement, putting yourself in movement. That means if you want to motivate someone else, you basically have to identify things that motivate that person. Will every person be motivated by the things that you are motivated by? Yes or no? What's the likelihood? People being motivated by? No. Zeal, thank you for that. No, most people will not be motivated by exactly the same things. Motivation is something where you have to create an environment where people can motivate themselves, all right? If you say, I want to motivate people, and I come there and I give them money, that may not be something that is their main motivator, okay? So the very first thing is motivation. If you're thinking about how can I motivate other people better, you have to identify what is it that the other person is jumping on. not what you're jumping on, okay? So if we're linking that to the topic of coaching, all right, you have different layers of how you can coach. You can coach the game. Typically that starts when you're working with, you know, very young athletes. You would start to basically teach them the basics of the game. The next level would be you coach the player. So you would identify what are key technical requirements, for instance, for a football, for basketball, for a badminton player, for a runner. And you would work on cadence, you would work on passing, you would work on tactics with them. That is coaching the player, helping them improve in their particular position. The last thing is coaching the person, all right? So if you've watched, I'm sure there's a few people among you guys who've watched The Last Dance, you actually saw there was a lot of people coaching. The person was coached. It was not necessarily the player or the game that was coached, all right? So the higher you go, typically, the more you have to coach the person, because these guys have already developed a lot of skill in the position that they're in, and they bring a lot of character and motivation to the game. What we've observed is, in the current times, a lot of focus and put still doing webinars on coaching players, all right? So you try to organize sessions for your players. You try to have, whether it is golf, whether it is football, whether it is fitness related, you try to give them something that improves their game, all right? That is not wrong, that is part of it. However, in a lot of cases, what actually your players, what your athletes are requiring is that they're coached as a person, because they have a lot of things that they're going through that they themselves, at no matter which age level they're in, they're not able to handle it themselves, okay? So the session today will, detail a lot of the concepts that will help you to actually coach the person more effectively, not only to coach the player, but to coach the person, okay? Good. You guys didn't come this far, didn't sign up for this session to just come this far, okay? You guys wanted to get a little bit more, and I promised you 3 keys. Quick check in the chat. How many of you are interested to learn about the 3 keys? How many are interested? Just type in yes. How many are interested? Me, yes, yes, yes. All right, okay. All right, so I can see 15 people out of roughly how many? 134. Okay, we're getting to 25. If we reach 30, then okay, we reached 30, so we can proceed. Excellent, perfect. So I promised you 3 keys to boost your athletes. A couple of them may sound familiar, but I'll try to give you guys a slightly more advanced twist so you're able to work and implement them for your daily work, all right? So the very first thing is assess and understand. No sports guessing, all right? So it's a very, very popular thing out there, that's sports guessing, and I've experienced that when I, was, playing football in Germany. A lot of times, a coach would come, a new coach, and would say, "Well, have you ever played as a left back?" And I said, "No, I haven't." I was like, "Tomorrow is the game. I'll put you as a left back. What do you think?" And I was like, "Well, I can try it, of course, but I've never played as a left back." All right. So there's a lot of sports guessing involved, where someone thought, okay, I think you can do it, but that person actually has never done it. All right. So you actually don't, especially in important moments, you don't want to put a person there. So you want to gather some information first. All right. How do you gather information? Don't worry, it's not going to be an academic session. You have 2 types of information gathering: qualitative data, quantitative data, okay? Pardon me if I go too deep. I have a business background, so, I keep thinking about those topics, and, just stay tuned, and, I'm able to give you a little bit value for that. The first one is qualitative, meaning it's actually less about gathering a lot of data. It is very, very specific. Qualitative ways of actually gathering data is interviews, one-on-one. It's small group interviews. You can call them focus groups. So you bring a couple of your players, a couple of your athletes together, and you ask them as a group, because they may share things in a group once they hear that someone else says something that individually they would not share with you. All right. Or you basically, go out and, do a survey. Quantitative data is a lot more data related. Okay. a lot more data related. So what you want to do there is you actually would like to collect stuff that you can then process where it makes sense to run certain analyses. What I've seen, what a lot of sports coaches do is they do some form of qualitative data. They say, yeah, I spoke to the player, but most of the time it actually then deviates from a I'm interested in you to a conversation that is mostly about the sports. You actually want to stay with the person. I'm going to share a couple of tools of how you can actually stay with the person. The other thing is for quantitative that it is a lot about, okay, what's your performance? Give me the, heart rate data, etc. However, there's a lot of stuff that is actually revealed by just one factor. You may know it, but I'm going to share it with you anyways. Maybe it's a good repetition. All right. So I'm going to share 3 tools with you. And the very first one is, are you happy with? It is a simple grid. Okay. The idea here is to give players an opportunity to evaluate themselves in 4 different areas. Okay. So your players typically have a planning stage. Okay. How do they plan their season? And as you can tell on the screen, there's 1, 2, 3 areas that are dedicated to that. Then they have a practice stage, meaning they have a certain time that they allocate to prepare themselves. Also there, you would have 3 different types of questions that you ask. Then there's a performance-related stage, because as we all know, practice and performance, often they are very, very different, all right? From a psychological point of view, the pressure that athletes experience, it's very different when they're in a training or in a competition, all right? And the last part is recovery. In this stage where a lot of people are not able to go out, it is important that you give your athletes a slightly different perspective in terms of where do they stand in all of those areas, all right? So what you can do is you just tell them, all right, for each of the questions that I'm just gonna show you on the screen in a second, make sure that you rate yourself from 0 to 10. How good are you? How happy are you, okay? And then you basically, draw a little triangle where the person rated themselves, you connect it, and you have a very, very visual way of helping the athlete understand which are the areas where they're already good. Most likely those are the areas that they already enjoy working at, and which are the areas that are not so good, okay? What kind of questions would you ask them? All right, so I told you the first 3 questions would be related to planning. When it comes to making planning work, there's a lot of research that has been done. And one of the research that was done was you basically need 3 layers, okay? And those 3 layers, I'm gonna put them into the chat, are dreams, goals, and steps. You need a big dream. Afterwards, you break that dream down into something that is goal related. And then afterwards, you break these goals down into steps. Because we as humans, we're not able to process anything that goes above a week, all right? Therefore, a lot of the New Year's resolutions don't work because it's just so far away, okay? So what you want to make sure is you try to ask them questions. How happy are you with how I support you towards your dream? If that person says, well, I don't know what my dream is, you know what your next topic is gonna be with them, all right? If they have no clarity where they would like to be, maybe that's where they need you as a coach. The second one would be, well, how do I break that down? Maybe I would like to be the best hockey player in my position that there is in Singapore. What does that specifically mean? What kind of goals does that entail? What kind of factors is that connected to? And afterwards, if that is your goal, how do you break that down into smaller steps on a daily basis? I know that you guys do that, especially the small steps on a daily basis. In those times, I mentioned earlier, where a lot of athletes are very short-term oriented, they need you most for the big picture. That's what they're not able to see right now, all right? Questions 4, 5, 6 are related to their game, how they're practicing, their physical ability, their technique, their mental game. You want to understand how well do they think they're prepared overall for that, and whether you can actually support them there. Points 7, 8, 9 is pre-game routine, competition performance, and performance under pressure. There can be a big difference between a regular game and the final. So you want to make sure that you understand what is it that they're struggling most with, okay? And the last part is recovery, nutrition, sleep, recovery tools, and the last one I'm actually not able to see right now, the mental recovery, yes. So those are the topics. So you just give them a basic grid and you tell them, okay, I'm curious to support you more, and here are a couple of questions, okay? That is quantitative method 1, where you get a quite good understanding about where is your athlete actually standing overall. That is something that works very well for people who are very towards, okay? So they basically understand what are the things that I'm currently doing, and they have a very, very specific goal. Is everybody very positive? Do you only have athletes that are very positive, that are only thinking about how they can get better? Yes or no? Yes or no? All right, Zeal is incredible. Zeal is always the fastest one in typing. I don't know what he's doing, but yeah, it's very good. Excellent. Okay, it's a mixed answer. So in a lot of cases, you don't only have athletes that are very positive and towards, all right? Johnson, you're right, very rare. You have a lot of athletes that are actually thinking about, well, how can I deal better with stress? And they are actually more away from. So when you talk to them, they're actually not talking about the next big topic. They're not talking about the next big challenge that they have and how they're gonna ace in that. But they will talk about how can they get away from topics, from challenges that are bothering them, okay? So if you realize that an athlete is still very much caught in that problem state and is very, very frustrated in a lot of cases, and I'm using that kind of a tool also when I work with people in corporates, a lot of the times people are not able to pinpoint what it is exactly, all right? So I give you a couple of categories, and it is adopted from Precision Nutrition, by the way, one of the great websites when it comes to nutrition advice, very scientifically proven. So if you want to check them out, they have excellent free material out there as well. However, I like this graph because it is a very visual representation. I know there's a lot of youth coaches, school coaches out there. Where are my youth coaches? Just quickly type in youth. Just quickly type in youth into the chat. Where are the school coaches? All right. Chin, Billy, Julie, Desmond. All right. Johnson. Very good. Keith, Karen, Lindsay. All right. Okay. So we have quite a number of youth coaches out there. Obviously, if you talk to your youth coaches about financial insecurity, they will find it very, very difficult to relate to that. Okay, so there's a couple of areas that obviously you would blank out, where you'd say, well, you know, I have to somehow substitute them. Thank you, Derek. I have to substitute them with other areas. So you can either choose to cross them out completely, or you replace them with something else. Let's say you have an athlete that finds it very difficult to connect to all the sessions because they're living in a very crowded space and they don't have access to a computer regularly. Okay, that is a certain topic that you would want to address with them, where you may be able to actually provide support in various ways to get these guys access. All right, so if you want to modify that, those may be points that you can leave out. Point number 3, quantitative. There is something called heart rate variability out there. And I just want to quickly check how many of you are aware of heart rate variability and use it on a regular basis. Just quickly type it into the chat. Are you aware of it? If you're aware of it, type yes. No? All right. Mixed picture. Okay. Great. That's okay. That's fair. So we see there's a lot of people that have not heard about it. That's no problem. Heart rate variability was described by Harvard Health as a new way to track well-being and is actually used by a lot of professional athlete teams. However, I have to disagree with Harvard Health. It is not a new way to track well-being. It has been around since the 70s. And since the 70s, doctors and professional athletes have used heart rate variability. What is it? It's basically the difference of timing in between your heartbeats and the amplitude in between those heartbeats. Meaning your heart, even if it beats 60 times every minute, does not beat regularly every second, okay? Heart rate variability is basically impacted by two different factors. And those two different factors is your autonomous nervous system, meaning that is responsible for your digestion and breathing. So the basic stuff that your body tries to maintain. And that autonomous nervous system tells the heart, please slow down. Slow is a little better, you know, take it easy. However, the active part of your brain constantly seeks new challenges, new topics that they're interested in, meaning it wants topics that are new. And it tells the heart, well, actually beat a little bit faster because I saw something that is interesting. I'm now curious to learn more about that. So your heart rate is impacted by those two systems on a constant basis. Why is that relevant to me, you may ask? All right, it's, you know, great science, you know, but why did I sign up for a science class? Because heart rate variability is your body's main indicator to show whether it is relaxed or stressed, okay? Heart rate variability tells you whether your body is in a stressed or in a relaxed state. And the advent of the phone has made it very easy for you to use heart rate variability. You don't need to have professional equipment or need to go to a doctor, okay? How can you and your athletes use it? Very simple. There's two apps out there. One is called Healthzilla. The other one is called Weltery. They're working in exactly the same way. What does it do? They use the camera of your phone, once you've downloaded it, and your index finger. You scan it for a minute, and it gives you a pretty accurate heart rate variability score, okay? So if you want to understand whether your body is currently in a stressed or more recovered state, you can use those resources that are out there that make it very easy for you to actually tell that. Is that something that is important to know when you're working with athletes? Absolutely, because it tells you whether on that particular day you are able to push them harder or not. Now you may tell me, okay, you know, you mentioned that professional athletes are using it. Are they using Healthzilla and Weltery, a little dinosaur, and, you know, a light bulb? For sure not. There must be something else out there. If you want to bring it to the next level, there's two other resources out there. One is called the Aura Ring. It measures it far more accurately because, you know, you have the ring on your finger and it measures the heart rate variability there. The other one is a bracelet. It's a strap called Whoop. It looks something like that. It doesn't have a face, but it measures your heart rate variability 100 times per second and then translates it into data that you as a coach can use in terms of strain, activity, and sleep, okay? So if you feel, well, my athletes actually, I would like to check a little bit more as where they are, how stressed they are, heart rate variability is something easy, something that you already have available at your fingertips with those apps that you can use, okay? So point number one is assess and understand. Use different kind of frameworks beyond a typical, you know, heart rate monitor, resting heart rate. Try to understand what is going on inside your athletes, both in their mind as well as in terms of their stress. Okay. Great. So once you've done that, you say, all right, I've understood that they're stressed. I've understood that, you know, obviously something is not right. They find it difficult to deal with the situation. What else can I do? Okay. The second point is help them work through fear. And the first thing that I would like to check with you is what are the typical, sorry, I go back. You guys were still taking pictures. So you guys should have a chance to take pictures. No worries. Help them work through fear. No worries. Quickly type into the chat, what are the things that people experience, either you or your athletes, when they go through stages of fear and anxiety? What is it that they experience? Just, you know, quickly type away. They feel lost, okay. Nervous, mental block. All right, fear of losing, Kyron, yeah, very interesting. Happy man, good, always good to have a happy man on the chat. Scared to lose. Unmotivated, all right, unable to perform, scared because of the rival, yeah, embarrassed maybe a little bit, nervous, yeah, great. Those are all factors that people experience. What most people don't think about is how are fear and anxiety constructed? How can I break them down and tackle those components? All right. And it turns out that the DNA of fear and anxiety is actually the same one as success and excitement. All right. Did you guys think that fear and anxiety and success and excitement are constructed in exactly the same way? Most probably not. I would like to share the 3 components with you. 3 components, the DNA of fear. The very first thing, and that is something that is very unique to us humans, the very first thing that happens is visualization. We as humans are the only mammals on this planet, no other mammal is able to do that, to basically take pictures, produce pictures in our brain and project them to the future. All right? Think about what is it that is going to happen tomorrow. Afterwards, what happens? Once we have seen those pictures, our brain thinks about them and translates them into either worries or thoughts. Okay? Worries, something, obviously that's the cognitive side, the thought side. That is something where people are like, well, you know, I'm not sure how to deal with that. So let me process that and think about it. The last part is a physical reaction. All right. So you've seen those pictures. You don't like those pictures. They cause worries. And the third part that is happening is a physical reaction, meaning your brain tells, or basically instructs the body to secrete certain hormones. And in a stress situation, those are cortisol and adrenaline, your stress hormone and your adrenaline, to basically have a fight or flight situation. Okay. That is how fear is constructed in every single one's brain and body. It's a combination of those 3 factors. Now you say, well, you know, you told me that success and excitement are constructed in exactly the same way. That's true. So what is happening is both, either whether you're talking about things that you don't want or things you want, it starts with a visualization. You attach certain thoughts and a meaning to it. And afterwards, there's a physical reaction. So for success and excitement, your body also secretes adrenaline. So rather than telling your athletes, stop worrying, it's rather about, well, how can you actually tell your body that it is currently in a success or excitement stage? Because from a physical reaction, your body is not able to tell the difference, okay? So interesting that both are constructed in the same way. And I say, well, Bernard, that's very nice. Could you please tell me how can I battle that? No, I would like to tackle that with my athletes. So we've understood there's 3 components to fear and anxiety, visualization, worries, and stress. How do you effectively tackle those ones? I give you 2 pathways. One is meditation. A lot of the top level athletes may not know that. They use meditation apps. And if you've not discovered meditation for yourself, don't worry. It is not something that I discovered for myself either. All right. Calm is something that is regularly used by LeBron James. And Headspace is another app that I know a lot of athletes are using. It is, those are both tools for people who want to start out on meditating. It is not for someone that is already meditating for 45 minutes to an hour every day. They may find that very boring, okay? So those are entry-level methods. What do you do in this time, in this meditative time? You actually try to swap out the images that worry you for images that empower you and actually help you on your journey, okay? The second thing is journaling. How many of you guys have told your athletes to use a journal? How many? Just quickly type yes. Me, all right. Zeal, wow. You're losing your game. You were just second. Kidding. All right, that's great. There's a lot of people out there who already do that. It is something that has proven to be quite beneficial, both in terms of tracking your results over time, but also in terms of understanding thought patterns. Neuroscience research, so research of the brain, has found out more than 95% of the thoughts we have on a daily basis are repetitive, meaning what you're thinking today are the same thoughts you had yesterday, the day before, and the day before. So unless you're able to understand the patterns that your brain goes through, you will not be able to change them, okay? Because it's it attaches certain beliefs and thoughts to that. So journaling is something that helps. So encourage your athletes to do that. And maybe it is something that Galu mentioned, mostly doing it for yourself. That's great as well. Try to encourage them. They don't have to share it with you, but it will help them over time work through a couple of topics. Then we come to worries, which is the cognitive side. What can you do there? Once again, write them down. The other thing, worries are actually something that are constructed to help your body. Okay, worries are designed to help you work through certain things where your brain is stuck. So your brain is stuck, you don't know how to deal with a certain situation. Worries were intended for you to work through that problem and find a solution. They are very helpful if you get to a solution, if you take action. However, they're not so beneficial if you just keep running those thoughts in your head. So one small thing is push yourself to take action, even if it is a small one. So if one of your athletes is sitting at home and is not able to get out of that rut, push them to just take a small action every single day and have them do that every single day. That will definitely push their accomplishment, their feeling of accomplishment. The other one is, I don't have to tell you that, be active and exercise. I'm not gonna go into detail for that. There you guys have far more knowledge than I have. The last part is just encourage them to limit stimulants. In a time, as you can imagine, when your cortisol and your adrenaline levels are already out of whack, you don't want to push them further by adding certain things. So even though it may be something that is boring and say, well, Bernard, we know all of that, it is something that is quite helpful in this situation. Okay. Awesome. So that was key number 2. Help them work here. Help them understand when they're going through a state of fear. What are the different levels? How can they actually deal with them in a better way? Okay. The last part is use a smart schedule. Use a smart schedule. Now you're going to tell every single time I open Facebook, every single time I open Instagram, there is some person that tells me about some great schedule, some productivity hack. I'm not up for that anymore. All right. Because I come from a sports background and I used to, be in a professional sports environment. I basically translated that over because that was something that helped me perform better in the corporate world, and I want to share it with you. Is it the best method? Maybe not, but it is something that has proven to work for the people that I work with on a daily basis, as well as for myself in quite a good way. Okay. It is called the 1-2-5 formula. 1-2-5 formula. And you say, well, what does 1-2-5 stand for? 1 stands for your most important task. It is not necessarily something that is urgent, but it's your most important task for the day. All right. So you write that task down and come hell or high water, I will accomplish that task. If you look at my 1-2-5 today, maybe I can show that to you guys. Otherwise you'll say, well, he's talking about 1-2-5, but no. That is how my 1-2-5 looks like today. All right. So I had a certain work session where basically I had to redefine joy, strength. What are the target audiences? What are the people that I work with? My second, one of the 2 other points that I found very important is CoachSG. So the session with you, I want to do a good job. So it is important for me that I show up at my best. Okay. So those are 2 other tasks that you have on a daily basis. I have some personal training sessions later. So those are sessions that I have to prepare, and I set times aside in my calendar for that. And then lastly, you have small tasks that are happening on a daily basis. They may be urgent, maybe not urgent, but they're just there. All right. Nice. You may say, Bernard, works for you. Great. Angmo uses his calendar and schedule. Nice one. But how does it work for me? All right. I'm a coach. I would like to understand how it works for me. I put it down and, I'm just going to take you through that example. Maybe it applies to you. Maybe you have to tweak it a little bit so that it applies to you. All right. So the main task where you set a certain amount of time aside is supporting my athletes. It can be to create learning opportunities for them. Maybe another badminton coach in a different country, or a famous badminton player, and that person can speak to your athletes. Okay. Maybe you have someone who is in the support staff who's talking about, I don't know, topic of stress or resilience. and that person speaks to your athlete. So you try to understand your athletes and create learning opportunities for them. Then I understand a lot of you guys are also running virtual sessions. So obviously you have to prepare them and run them. Upskilling and learning. You guys are already, sure, no problem. I can flash the phone again. A lot of you guys are already creating learning opportunities, okay? And then you have a couple of more activities. You may be on social media. You may want to, position yourself as a thought leader in your sports. You have certain email and requests that come in, and you have maybe some self-care that you have to do. For me, as lead follow-up, there's all sorts of other topics. A lot of people ask me, how much time do I allocate to that? Because frankly, I have far more topics on my list than you have. It seems that you are not busy, Bernard. All right, no problem. My question for you is, how many hours does a professional athlete practice on a daily basis? How many hours? Just quickly type it into the chat. How many hours does a professional athlete practice? How many? 5, 4, all right. You guys are good. Wow, 4, 6, 3 to 5. 2 to 4, yeah. 6 hours, 8 hours, yeah. Very good. So something between 3 and 6 hours. Was one person with 8 hours, sorry. 9 to 5, ayo. It's not working for UOB, okay? It's an athlete, okay? So 1 day, 2 times. All right, okay, great. You guys are very accurate. I had one person that told me the other day, 24 hours. There was a snooker player that was playing for 24 hours. So I did not include 24 hours, but it's something between 3 and 24 that I typically hear. Athletes, roughly 10 to 15 years ago, professional athletes used to practice between 6 to 8 hours. Then they realized one important thing. Their careers were getting cut short. They were not able to actually extend their career. So that is something where they realized I have to practice less. Today, no matter which sport you're in, 3 times 90 minutes, meaning 4.5 hours. A couple of months ago, I was in Australia for a conference and I was on a panel with someone from the New Zealand All Blacks, okay? And I shared that insight and people in the audience said, well, please tell the young guy that he's wrong. I'm sure you guys are practicing more. He confirmed it. Maximum number is 3 times 90 minutes of deep practice. So if people whose career is maximum 10 years, in American football 3 years, are able to practice 3 times 90 minutes, of course they have other commitments, they have sponsorship commitments, etc. They have to pay attention to their recovery. I get that. The day is longer, there's more tasks, but the core tasks are 3 times 90 minutes. So my question for you is, if you have, yes, Victor, 3 times 90 minutes per day. If you have 3 times 90 minutes every day, where you work on the most important topics that advance you as a coach and help you be a better coach for your players, what are the topics that you're dealing with? Okay, so 3 times 90 minutes is the sweet spot. And by the way, there's been research that has been done once again in neuroscience, and it has been confirmed. 3 times 90 minutes is the maximum time that the human brain is able to focus and repeat that on a daily basis. All right. You're able to focus more. You're able to put in more hours if it is 1 day. If you have to finalize an important exam, you have to prepare for a big tournament, you may be able to put in more hours. However, that is not something that is sustainable you can do over time. So my question for you guys, what is it that you will spend your 3 times 90 minutes on? How will you spend them from tomorrow onwards? Okay. All right. Those were the 3 keys, but I know you guys are usually hungry for more knowledge. Is anybody up for a quick bonus, 2 to 5 minute bonus? Anybody interested? Just, quickly type yes if you're interested. Anybody interested? Sonia's interested. Wing is interested. Billy, all right. All right, Sonia's very fast. Ayo. Yeah. Johnson, okay, cool. Yes to all. All right. Okay, I get it. Excellent. How many hours does it take to master something? What is the research around that? How many hours does it take to be truly outstanding at something? Quickly type it into the chat. Desmond, 10,000, 10,000. All right, you guys are good. 10,000 hours was the research done by Anders Ericsson, meaning it takes 2 hours, 45 minutes every day for 365 days for 10 years to become outstanding at something. Is that something that encourages you to start something new? Yes or no? Is that very motivating to start something new if it takes 10,000 hours? No, it's not, right? Typically, no. It's like, well, you know, if it takes 10,000 hours, why do I even get started in the first place? All right. Most people don't know something that is called the power of the first 20 hours. And rather than boring you with something around a challenge, I would like to give you a slightly different approach, a slightly different angle on something that is different. All right. Kyron, wow, power of 20 hours. Obviously, you already know it. Let me tell you a quick story. Okay. In December, that was me, and I was attempting a split. All right. So as I told you, I used to play football, and I, been a triathlete quite competitively. So flexibility was never something that, I thought was really important for me. So in December, I came across a program that said within 30 days, anyone and everyone is able to do a full split if you follow a certain routine that is done by Muay Thai fighters and sumo wrestlers. The guy sent a 68, pages paper, and I was like, well, that sounds actually quite good. After 30 days, I checked again, and I was really frustrated, right? I was nowhere close. I mean, I got better, but I was nowhere close. And the worst part was, next to me was always one person, head to toe in Lululemon gear, without warming up. That person would go into a perfect split, okay? So I looked into my data, and I realized something was missing. I had just practiced for roughly 10 hours. What does the rule of the 20 hours, the first 20 hours say? Anything and everything that you practice with deliberate practice, so meaning you're not doing anything else at that time, for 20 hours, you'll be able to do reasonably well. What does reasonably well mean? You'll be able to get to a level that is actually quite okay, all right? So I show you a different picture. That was after 90 days. And my question is that a perfect split? Yes or no? Black and white. Perfect split? No. Thank you, Billy. Zil, you're making me feel better. Almost, yes. Mariana, almost there. It is not a perfect split, okay? No yoga teacher would use that for their website. If I applied with that to any circus, they would reject me hands down. Is that a split that is done reasonably well? Yes or no? Reasonably well. All right, yeah. So there's a couple of people that say that.
No.
My measure, whether it's done reasonably well, is always when I show it to men, they tell me it hurts me when I look at this picture. Okay?
No.
So if it hurts a man to look at that picture, it means it's done reasonably well. More important than 90 days, it was done within 20 hours of practice. All right, 20 hours of practice. So when you are giving your athlete the next 30-day challenge, make sure you set them on a challenge that takes them 20 hours. Because one of the reasons why people say it takes 66 days to establish a new routine is because typically it is easier to reach 20 hours in 66 days. Okay, so the next time you're doing something for your athletes, you say, hey, well, why don't you try that for 5 to 10 minutes every day? Make the calculation how long it will take. Make sure that you ask them to track it and to document it, and you will see they'll be able to do marvelous stuff. Okay, so introduce a challenge, but do it the right way. Cool. So I'm gonna jump that part very quickly because we basically covered it. Those were the topics on self-mastery. That's something that me and my team are typically doing. We're basically helping people in business, in sports, and in education transfer that over into how they can actually apply that in a team context. And even if you're an individual athlete, you're still part of a team. So how can you actually use topics like a growth mindset, integrity to the benefit of your team's vision by getting a better handle, for instance, on emotional recovery and stress resilience? How can you actually build more trust with the coaches? So that is the kind of the field that we're playing in. I mentioned that before, I'm not going to go through it. So these are the people that we work with. We have a slightly different approach than a lot of other companies. If you guys want to learn more, happy to explore that. And those are the institutions we worked with. I mentioned worked with CoachSG before. It's always great to partner up with the team really enjoy the preparation. It's always top professionally done, similar to that webinar. Sure you have experienced that as well. And with that, I would like to come to the end of the session. I just want to get a quick feedback. Did you guys learn something? Most importantly, did you guys learn something? Quickly type away. You guys learned something? All right. So a lot of people that learned something. Okay, great. However, it's a webinar and webinars are not as personal. All right. So did you guys have a little bit of fun? You guys have a little bit of fun? Just type fun. All right, so we had a couple of people had fun, engaging. All right, do you guys feel a little bit inspired to do things differently and help your athletes even more? All right, great. I see the chat is exploding. So with that, thank you very much for your attention. In case you found that interesting, you want to get in touch, here's my contact details. If you think, try to do the split now. Yeah. Nice try, Sonny. Huh? If you guys want to connect, typically I publish twice a week, so that people can understand how can they transfer lessons from the world of sports over into their area. And yeah, happy to connect with you. And yeah, with that, back to Eliza and to you guys in case you have any questions. I know I took a little. Yeah. Eliza,
okay,
over to you.
Thank you, Bernard.
Sure.
Okay, I think from the chat, most of you and all of you enjoyed the session, and that's great. That's good. Okay, it's nice to see the chat getting lively. So yeah, I'm aware that it's 4, but let's maybe just have time for 2 questions.
Sure.
If anybody wants to type in the chat any burning questions that you have, or just switch on your mic and ask Bernard any questions. Anybody? Audience that's tuning in on Facebook, feel free to type in the chat if you have any questions.
All right, I think we have some questions in the chat. All right. So I see 2 questions over there. One is, which is the most effective period to give motivation to an athlete? I think that depends really. We had that pyramid earlier. It really depends what type of person your athlete is. Everyone has, depending on the area, that can also vary. They have either a towards or an away from mindset. All right. So that means that in certain areas of your life, you will have noticed that you'll be willing to take more risks. In others, you may be willing to take less risks. Okay. So depending on the person that you're dealing with, if you have a person that is already very optimistic, that basically says, well, no matter what's going to happen, I'm going to ace that next game and I'm going to be the best player. If that person already has a lot of confidence, that motivation part has to be, given in doses. Basically enforce it whenever it matters most. However, for someone that is very doubtful of themselves, okay, thank you. However, for someone that is typically doubting themselves, they need a little bit more enforcement. So is there a particular time in the day? Is there something that, can be particularly done? It really depends on the athlete. So sorry that I cannot be more specific, but yeah, that's typically what I see. It really depends on the person. What gets the person to start to think from details rather than the big picture? All right. Also there, that is something, you have people that relate to time very differently, all right? So some people, if you close your eyes, for instance, and you visualize that moment of now, you try to visualize, okay, where is now? For some people, now is basically right inside them. For other people, now is right in front of them. So the people that see now inside of them, they are the people that are very punctual, because they feel that they are part of now. So punctuality is something that is very important. Those people often also like to think in terms of details, all right? Someone that sees now in front of them is often a little bit more big picture oriented. It's not always the case, but in a lot of cases it is happening. So if you're, depending on who you're dealing with, that big picture person, you may actually run them through a scenario where they find it very difficult to only think in the big goals, where you see them actually jumping from topic to topic. and you just help them to focus. Maybe that is the role that you have to play in that moment as a coach, where you say that athlete is not able to actually get into those details themselves. If I speak to my wife is very detail oriented, okay? So she ensures that whatever I do, I stay on track because I have a lot of ideas and I get excited by a lot of things. So there it's really important to have people that are not like you, and maybe that's the role you have to play as a coach, okay? So Lyndon, I hope that helped.
Yeah, we have one question from our Facebook audience.
All right.
So I think Shi Kong, yeah, he asks, is there any factors that we need to look out for when we are doing goal setting for younger athletes? So I guess this is coming from a youth coach and a school coach. Regarding goal setting, any key factors that coaches should look out for when they're dealing with younger athletes?
Yeah. That's a great question. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I think what I've observed with athletes that grow up over here, often they already have quite a number of goals that either they or their parents have, formulated for them. And it can be that they're fun, but in a lot of cases, those topics are actually not getting them excited. So for goal setting for a youth athlete, the most important thing is that it's fun. As a child, you won't do anything that is not fun. So the most important thing is, even if that person has that particular goal or the parents have that goal, it is important that you basically almost gamify it. You turn it into something that is a small challenge, something that is fun. And if that big goal constantly dangles above their head, it may be something that actually pushes them quite a bit. So for them, the most important thing may be to actually turn that into something fun and have them not constantly think about, how big that goal actually is. Yes, it may be something important, but there are other areas in life. So I think as a youth coach, the responsibility is not only to develop the athlete, but it's also to develop the person. So one of the challenges there would be to help that person turn that big goal that they have into something fun.
Okay, thanks for all your answers. I think there's many of you that might still have questions. But then, so Bernard has put up how to connect with him. So I would say the invitation is that if you have a burning question, visit his website, or maybe drop him an email, drop him a message on LinkedIn, and he will be able to answer your questions. So on my end, I will start sharing my screen.